Hello, Morris. Welcome to Tanks Invest. We'll talk about investing, finance, and professional development for today's times only. The investment I'm going to talk today will be Ethereum ETH. First, just want to say happy Sunday, everybody. It'll be a great weekend so far. Respect to recording time of 9:45 a.m. on the Eastern Time. Ethereum currently trading $4,051, about 2.83% so far. On the overall crypto market, besides Shiba Inu and Dogecoin, which are frankly quite comparable, are currently up about 3% for Dogecoin, and with respect to Shiba Inu, currently up about 23.23% so far, while the rest of the market is trending more of a sideways fashion, leaning more towards the negative side of the spectrum, right? With respect to the news this morning, I've been reading up the news. It seems like the news are not that active this morning. I think it's because of the weekend. Journalists have to have a live as well, right? But there are some news that peaked up that are more of a recurring type of reminder news on what happened last week specifically, which we've been keeping tabs on a daily basis, right? At least twice a day. But let's just go through them one by one, shall we? The first one's on CNBC about 45 minutes ago, talk about with respect to the affectation that we have seen in the market ever since the Bitcoin ETF that debuted on Tuesday, which is, technically about like a week ago, not really, right? Like 5-6 days ago. How that triangulate into the current price level that we are seeing, and what are some of the foreshadow that we'll be expecting for the price level to go, to be going forward, and how are the corporate institutions going to be, managing their funds going forward, and what are some of the fee structure that they will subsequently have to be implemented onto the structure, knowing the fact that Bitcoin ETF is still a relatively nascent type of asset class, if you may. It's historically more predominantly driven by equity, but now we're seeing crypto assets, which is frankly not tied to any specific business fundamentals or an industry vertical. This is more just a commoditized type of ETF or an index. With respect to the accounting mechanism or the finance mechanism is going to be treated slightly different in comparisons to equity, right? So that's something that they're still maneuvering through. So something that we will need to watch out for. And also on top of the fact that the FOMC meeting is coming up in November, and despite Jerome and Gary Gensler and Janet Yellen on the depictions around that they have no intentions of banning crypto at all in the US, that any enforcements around like tax or commission fee structure that could subsequently hinder the profit margin among investors on both the corporate side but also on the public side as well, that could subsequently have some hindrance onto the supply and demand dynamics of the market as well. So that's something we frankly don't have a full answer. Is still unconfirmatory so far. And also with respect to the crypto bill is still something that needs to go through revisions. That's something that's not finalized at the moment yet. That still needs to be passed through Congress, through obviously to all the way to the legislative branch, which is President Joe Biden. So a lot of movements that's still up in the air right now, and I can understand and resonate why a lot of the fund managers or asset managers, if you may, or wealth advisors are, maybe holding off on investing or advising their clients to be investing into Bitcoin ETF at the moment because there's still a lot of unknown entities that needs to be solved. And also with some of the, negative percolations that we've been experiencing so far, I believe some of the exchanges app, like the Bitcoin, the Binance apps, not Bitcoin, Coinbase, apologies, have been hacked. And I would say collectively in the last 6 months so far, there has been at least, I think 7 to 8 occurrences on the news that I've been, that I've been keeping tabs so far. Just by Coinbase alone, there was 3 occasions that I think there was one that was about 4,500 accounts that got hacked. And then another one was 6,200 accounts that got hacked. And then most recently, about 7,000 accounts that got hacked, right? And the amount of the dollar that was lost was about like 11 to like 14 million of, just accounts being washed or being hacked, respectively. So that's a lot of money. And, it's not a lot of money in the whole grand scheme of things, but still a lot of people's hard-earned money in their wallet. And compliance and regulatory structure is still something that, frankly, we need to solve. And, with respect to the growing and frankly more nascent infrastructure that crypto still has and needs to build upon, that's obviously something that will keep you up at night if you are is not completely fixed, and we don't have 100% confirmatory comfort around the regulatory dynamics as well, right? So the next one is to talk about with respect to Decrypt. About 2 hours ago, the depictions around why Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin surged this week. Again, with respect to the Bitcoin ETF news, and also with respect to some of the commercialization news on NFT as well. And also, a lot of fund managers have publicly spoken on media platforms saying that they put the stamp of approval for Bitcoin, they put the stamp of approval of Ethereum as a hedge as well. So all of these media affectation and the ETF drive some buying pressure, but it seems like with the lack of momentum, despite Bitcoin hit all-time high at 67,000, that we are just kind of cooling off a bit right now, right? Which is logical, and I think we need to, because we were screaming extremely overbought on all technical levels. And then the next one, this is something that we have talked about. Not sure if we talked about it recently, but I've seen this before. This is talked about on Bitcoin. It's about 7 hours ago. Talk about a virtual land in Bitcoin hot city. So it seems like there's a Vancouver virtual land that is selling some sort of an ETF. And the land is basically characterized as like a city in Vancouver, which is known to be a beautiful city, and they are selling virtual land, kind of like Sims, on the market. So it seems like people are investing into virtual real estate nowadays. Not sure. You can't really live in a virtual space. It's like a Sims. Like, can you even live in a sim environment? Not if you like completely turn your brain into a computer, and then you inject your I guess your conscience into the computer, and then you live in the sim land. I think that's so someday that could happen. It's like some sort of like a simulation type of computer system. I wouldn't be surprised that we can artificially duplicate our mind, our conscience into a computer hard drive or I don't know, software or something like that, and then we inject ourselves into a virtual land where we have abundance of, I don't know, currencies, abundance of resources that we feel perpetually happy. I wouldn't be surprised if we all get brainwashed like that. But obviously, that's like some sci-fi stuff that we're talking about. That is probably something that I get from inspirations of Black Mirror that I've seen. You probably have seen the show on Netflix, right? But if you haven't, like, take a look. It's a pretty good show on Netflix. I watched actually all the episodes from season 1 to all the way to season 3, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I last watched it. And that's pretty much on the news front. On the overall, again, it's not that active on the media front this morning. So with respect to Ethereum right now, we are just basically hovering above the 4,000 mark. We opened at the 4,168, but we subsequently sold down by $100. But again, it's just more like a levitation type of just hovering on a sideways fashion, not doing much, with lack of sustainability at the at the above levels. If you take a look at it, we don't really have anything substantive that we can hold ground on, right? And right now we just kind of trending away. People are not buying, people are not selling either. We cannot really get above all-time high, even though above all-time high is basically still like $350 away. So right now, on top of the fact that we are overbought at 63 out of 70, we're forming a huge well back, which you could see as a huge curvature. So we bound to actually cross down. So we have to watch this critical level, right? The 4,000 mark. But the actual level that we have to really watch is the 3,850, right? If we break that, with a long way to go to 3,475. And I think that would technically be a good level to dollar cost average first. But if we're going to go through the market cycle, and I think we need to, ideally 3,150 would be more logical for me. So again, for me, I do have a relatively large holding already, so I'll just probably wait until we cool down, because ultimately, disregard the market cycle, we still need to deplete the whole technicals, right? So I'll wait until the technicals cool down first. With respect to Bitcoin right now is still selling off, and we form a def cross and with a 60 out of 70. So I think ideally selling back down to the 47 or somewhere around like the 50, which is a critical level. Right now we're just basically hovering because this is a critical level of 60k. But ideally selling back down to firstly test the 56, the 53, ideally above the 50, but you could see that 50 is not really a zone, right? We basically leap all the way down to the next level of the 47. So I think ideal that would be a good level to dollar cost average first. I think 43, 40, 37, 34, these are relatively stretched because we do have a relatively good level of substantiveness of like the first level 52, and then a bunch of them here and a bunch of them here. So I think 43 would be a very logical move. Dogecoin right now is surging up because I think Shiba Inu is also surging up as well. So, but it's not as prominent, obviously. We're still overbought at 60 out of 70. Ideally, buy at the 22 or the 20 would be much better level for Dogecoin, knowing the fact that we're still running relatively hot. Cardano's down about 2% right now, and I think as we lean down to the 205 would be a good level to dollar cost average at. If we break that 187 is coming. Solana is right now struggling. You could see that we tried to test all-time high to the 215, but we couldn't get there. You see immediately a bunch of people sold, right? Mostly public investors. And right now we are forming a curvature at the 66 out of 70. So ideally coming back down to the bare minimum of the 136, 113 would be much better level to dollar cost average at. And it needs to cool down because we're still running really hot, so I wouldn't chase it right now. XRP is, I think ideally buy at the 101 would be a good level, knowing the fact that we formed a def cross recently, we're still like an okay level, so 105 would be better, or 101. Polkadot would be, we form a def cross slowly, we're still over about the 62, so ideally buy at the 33. 25 would be a more optimal level for me. Algorand right now is, yeah, so it's forming a curvature right now, and we form a def cross. That's why we see this small rally. But again, right, there isn't any air up there, so you can see that we try to get above to basically attempting to break $2, but we couldn't get there, and that's why you see this like immediately sold down, immediately sold down, immediately sold down. So it's relatively bearish. And I think we formed the apex recently already, so ideally cooling back down to deplete the RSI back to 30. So I think ideally buy the 170 at bare minimum to 155 would be the more logical levels. Shiba Inu is surging right now. It's formed a golden cross again, so this is relatively abnormal behavior. I wouldn't really chase Shiba Inu because the activity is relatively weird. The outliers are relatively prominent, so this is not really logical market supply dynamics. There seems to be a lot of whales pumping in right now. So I would definitely be careful with respect to Shiba Inu. But if you bought in now, just be prepared that you might sell down a little bit because of how drastic it changed the course of nature. Ultimately the money's where's the money talks, right? So money's gonna pump in and drive some changes in, forming some outliers into the market. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. And when you see something like that, when greed is running high, you definitely want to stay away because it's a more of a risk-averse thing to do, right? So hopefully this is helpful. And with respect to the dollar cost average on the risk management level, these are the identified levels for you to, use as your reference. Again, these are for myself, as the RSI and the MACD depletes back to more of a normalized level. Again, I'm more of a risk-averse long-term investor, right? And I'm not in a rush of like buying it really, really quickly or try to like rush into things. These good things takes time over time, so I'll just be patient about how I'm approaching this going forward. And I think with respect to the market cycle, despite how unobvious and how much outliers we've been forming so far, we still need to, recycle the dollars, right? Because ultimately the dollars need to come from somewhere unless we further depreciate our dollars collectively. But that's not something that's ideal, right? So hopefully this is helpful. Hope you guys have a good Sunday, have a good weekend, and stay tuned for us to come up. Take care.